I recently read Travels with Charley in Search of America by John Steinbeck. In this travelogue, Steinbeck blends truth with a touch of fiction as he recounts a 1960 road trip he took across the United States, accompanied by his faithful poodle, Charley. Steinbeck is a masterful writer. It was interesting to read his musings on the different states and see how he turns ordinary moments into memorable stories. In this video, I'm sharing 3 passages where Steinbeck recounts his travels in New England during the fall. I thought they would be particularly fitting as it is now autumn here in the United States. Let's see what techniques Steinbeck uses that we can learn to make our own writing more powerful. Here is a passage where Steinbeck describes the autumn colors. He is traveling north in Vermont and then east in New Hampshire. The roadside stands were piled with golden pumpkins and russet squashes and baskets of red apples so crisp and sweet that they seemed to explode with juice when I bit into them. The climate changed quickly to cold, and the trees burst into color, the reds and yellows you can't believe. It isn't only color, but a glowing, as though the leaves gobbled the light of the autumn sun and then released it slowly. This passage beautifully transports the reader to New England. We can see the fall foliage and feel the brisk air, just as if we were there with Steinbeck. Here are 3 techniques Steinbeck employs to bring the scene to life. First, Steinbeck uses sensory words, the descriptive words that apply to the 5 senses: sight, touch, taste, smell, and sound. Steinbeck incorporates 3 of the 5 senses in this quoted passage. Words related to sight or appearance. These can also include words related to motion. For example, golden pumpkins, red apples. Words related to touch. The climate changed quickly to cold. Words related to taste. So crisp and sweet that they seemed to explode with juice when I bit into them. If you're attempting to make a passage of writing vivid for your readers, try including more sensory words that appeal to all 5 senses. Second, Steinbeck uses personification to describe the leaves gobbling up the light. Personification is the attribution of a personal nature or human characteristics to something non-human. With personification, Steinbeck creates a striking image that makes me think about autumn colors in an entirely different way. As the leaves of the trees have started turning yellow, I've been thinking of them as gobbling up the light and glowing. Third and finally, Steinbeck zooms in on his descriptions with a writing technique I call the detailed list. He could have just told us blandly that the roadside stands were piled with fresh fruits and vegetables. Instead, he zoomed in and described each one: golden pumpkins, russet squashes, and red apples. That helps us better visualize the stand in our minds. Let's look at another passage. In this passage, Steinbeck comments about the Northeasterners' tendency to move south later in life. He describes a man from Maine, specifically Aroostook County, who moves to Florida. With his savings moved and invested in Florida, the man can't return to the north. But Steinbeck wonders if the man ever regrets his decision. But I do wonder if a down-easter, sitting on a nylon and aluminum chair, out on a changelessly green lawn, slapping mosquitoes in the evening of a Florida October, I do wonder if the stab of memory doesn't strike him high in the stomach, just below the ribs, where it hurts. And in the humid ever summer, I dare his picturing mind not to go back to the shout of color, to the clean rasp of frosty air, to the smell of pine wood burning and the caressing warmth of kitchens. For how can one know color in perpetual green, and what good is warmth without cold to give it sweetness? This passage is a fantastic example of how to make an argument more persuasive with a fictional story. While scholars debate how much of Steinbeck's travelogue is fictionalized, the book is in the style of nonfiction, so his narrative often drifts into philosophizing. This could become boring, but Steinbeck makes sure to keep it engaging by anchoring his paragraphs with stories, sometimes fictional, sometimes anecdotal. Here Steinbeck is arguing that a man from Maine would eventually grow tired of living in the ever-summer of Florida. Look at how vivid of a picture he draws with such precise details. The man isn't sitting on just any chair. It's nylon and aluminum. He doesn't just write that the man has a stab of memory, but also that it strikes him high in the stomach, just below the ribs where it hurts. And notice that this passage is overflowing with sensory words. Here Steinbeck has a word to appeal to each one of the 5 senses, even scent, smell of pine wood burning, and we could say sound if we think of slapping mosquitoes as also making a sound. Juxtaposition is another powerful writing strategy that Steinbeck employs here. By placing the picture of the Florida autumn side by side with the picture of Maine, he creates a striking contrast. The image of the South's mosquitoes and green lawns throws into high relief the North's shout of color and clean rasp of frosty air. If you're attempting to make description more vivid, try introducing contrasts that will accentuate the specific details you highlight. I also love how this kind of fictional story can be used in any type of writing. Steinbeck's quick sketch of the rustic man could easily be slipped into marketing materials for a bed and breakfast in Maine. Here's a final eloquent passage with more of Steinbeck's autumn musings. In Salinas, California, where I grew up, the climate was cool and foggy. When we saw colored pictures of a Vermont autumn forest, it was another fairy thing, and we frankly didn't believe. In school, we memorized Snowbound and little poems about old Jack Frost. But the only thing Jack Frost did for us was put a thin skin of ice on the watering trough, and that rarely. To find not only that this bedlam of color was true, but that the pictures were pale and inaccurate translation was to me startling. I wondered whether constant association could cause inattention, and asked a native New Hampshire woman about it. It is a glory, she said, and can't be remembered, so that it always comes as a surprise. Steinbeck immerses us in this wonderful vignette from his childhood with sensory words, cool and foggy, and specific details, a thin skin of ice. He doesn't just tell us that he'd always thought of the Northeast as a fairy tale. He shows us why, with evocative imagery, the colored pictures he looked through, and the little poems he memorized. I love his powerful metaphor, bedlam of color, comparing the wildly intense colors to a madhouse. And again, he uses juxtaposition, this time to contrast the autumn in California to the autumn in New England. Another excellent lesson from this paragraph is how Steinbeck uses an anecdote from his past to bring added meaning to his travelogue. We are able to better appreciate his perspective as a traveler when we understand his childhood. It is true that the New Hampshire woman says that autumn always comes to her as a surprise, but it is probable that it is still much more surprising and impressive to Steinbeck, who is seeing it for the first time. The life experiences and background of the author influence the details he selects and what he highlights in his narrative, and it is fascinating to the reader to get a glimpse of how that background was formed. Take your writing to the next level with these techniques from Steinbeck. As we see from each of the quotes that I've shared, Steinbeck interweaves 3 types of narratives throughout his travelogue: his current experiences and anecdotes, the first example I shared, fictional stories to prove a point, the second example, and memories or past experiences to further explain his point of view, the third example. This is an excellent reminder that when you're writing nonfiction in any form, especially memoir, but also blog posts, essays, social media posts, or marketing materials, you can draw on these 3 types of stories to make your writing more vivid and impactful to your reader. And you can also certainly use these techniques if you're writing a fictional story from the point of view of a first-person narrator. In this brief video, I was only able to share several of the gems hiding in these passages. I'd love to hear about any additional techniques you spot or how you incorporate them into your current writing projects. Thank you so much for watching. If this video inspired you, please help it reach more writers by giving it a like. You can also subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one, and also to my email newsletter where I share more writing resources, essays, and inspiration. God bless, and I wish you all the best with your writing projects.